All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, friends and enemies, we're about to get into it now. It's so much of an honor to be here with Dr. Stein. For those who do not know, we're going to get into it, but one of the things that so impressed me about Dr. Stein is that she went to attend a rally for the Democratic debates, and she was detained by security to prevent her from entering. That is the extent the system will go to mute our voices. And I want to make sure everyone understands that. And I'll let you tell the story, but I want y'all to give her another round of applause because she put her life on the line, her freedom on the line. And so she just drove down through heavy traffic to be here with us in Washington, D.C. My name is Kimon Freeman, Angry Black Man in Therapy. We're here on the radical side of MLK Avenue, the nation's capital. I represent We Act Radio, and I am now officially in the Green Party as a candidate for D.C. Delegate. And I was inspired by this woman right here. I had the pleasure of meeting you and interviewing you during the Green Festival a few years ago. And that is when I learned about your greatness. So please, I want to start with the first question. What was the thing that pushed you over to take action? As we like to say at We Act Radio, what caused you to do something, to go from your practice as a doctor to stepping into the arena in the political realm and fighting a good fight? Dr. Jill Stein.
Yeah, thanks. And let me just give a big shout out for Kimon Freeman. I was just so excited to hear that he's taken this big step. And this is such a great thing, I think, not just for DC, not just for the capital of this country, and I should say not just for the state of DC, which is what it should be, but this is just such a powerful moment for you to be doing this, Kimon, because people are fighting angry right now, and people have had it, up to here with these zombie candidates and these two zombie political parties, and they want us to be good little boys and girls here while they spend, another, 90 billion, whatever it was that they want to spend on war a war on Gaza and a genocide on Gaza and the war in Ukraine. And we're supposed to say that's okay. The American people don't want that. I mean, just to look at Gaza alone, what is it? It's 68% of Americans want a ceasefire. We don't want war, but here they are unanimously getting behind this $17 billion to conduct war on Gaza. And none of them is standing up to the people, even though it's 68% of the people who are saying shut that war down, and they're throwing money at it when we don't have the housing that we need, or the schools, or the health care, or the environmental protection that we need, the open space, you name it. So it's just so wonderful that here in the nation's capital that we have someone who's doing a Dem exit and a Green enter. I think this is just the most exciting thing I can imagine. So I just want to give another round of applause.
I want to make sure that we're clear that what we're dealing with. We have in this election the two oldest candidates in the history of the country running for president. And the number two contenders for that record are the same candidates in the last election. And we've already seen what both of them have brought to the table. And now, I think Democrats are kind of sticking their head in the sand on this one. Joe Biden is not going to win this election. The only way he can win this election is if everyone who voted for him last time votes for him this time, and because of the genocide, it's not going to happen. And the only way it will happen is if Trump goes to jail. And I don't think that's very likely to happen. They didn't even put handcuffs on him. They didn't even give him a mugshot. So I don't think that's going to happen. And even if it did, the outside chance that Biden did pull this off, Trump is not going to accept the results. You know that, right? The last time was a dress rehearsal. You know what they call a field quartet? A rehearsal. This time, they be playing for keeps. And that's the seriousness that we were dealing with. Cornel West, a good friend of ours, I wish we was able to coalesce around a unified party with you and him both. But he says that if Trump is president, there'll be a civil war. If Biden is president, it'll be World War III. So choose your poison. And I think there's a third option. I think that 2024 should be a record-breaking turnout for third-party candidates.
Yeah.
We can have a peaceful revolution. We can have a peaceful revolution. And the fact is, most people don't know this, we have to educate them. So I want you to speak on this more. That if a third-party candidate gets only 5% of the national vote, they get federal funding, and they will now be on the debate stage. And that will break the back of a two-party political monopoly that we now have. Just 5%. The last time we saw a third party on that stage, I believe it was Ross Perot, and it was only 2% then. They changed what they moved the goalposts after that. But he didn't represent a party, he was an independent. Had he represented a party, then that party would have been able to benefit from the funding and that platform. So Jill, I know that's a lot. Unpack some of this and take it from there.
Great. And let me just say that they keep moving the goalposts, like for debates, to participate in debates. They're changing the rules all the time. So back in, I think it was 2020, when Dennis Kucinich was still trying to get the Democratic nomination, they changed the rules to keep him out so that he couldn't get on the debate stage. And that's just what they do. They change the rules all the time to keep us out. This time it's not clear at all that they're even going to have debates, which is why independent media and alternative media is so important. There are going to be some independent debates that are being organized this time around for the presidential campaign, organized by Free and Equal. That'll be open to many of the independent candidates. So it's like we're at a point in history now where we can't look at the old institutions anymore and think that they're going to support democracy or debates. And we just have to find our own way to fight forward. Like, for example, in DC, where there is a strong referendum campaign right now, and I want to give a shout out for everybody who's working on the referendum campaign to bring ranked choice voting to Washington, D.C. And raise your hand, because I know we've got at least one gentleman over here. Raise your hand if you are part of that fight, because it's a great battle, and the Democrats tried to kick it off the ballot, because that's what they do. They don't want to compete, and if they have competition, they will kick you off the ballot. In fact, I don't know if you heard, but they announced last week that they now have a super PAC in order to keep me off the ballot and to try to get me out of the election.
Congratulations.
Yes, I feel really honored. I feel honored to be that kind of a threat. So that's a tribute to us all. And it is a sign, I think, how much things are changing. They know their days are numbered. The Democrats are relying on dirty tricks to try to keep their competitors off the ballot. And the language they used was that they're going to try, that they had two announcements. And the first one was just that they were going to try to get people out of the way who might so-called spoil the election for Joe Biden. And they said that they were going to complicate ballot access for us. What does that mean? That means they're going to try to throw lawsuits up against us and, try to block our ballot access, try to discredit the petitions and the signatures that we get, they're going to be using dirty tricks. This is what they always do. When Ralph Nader was running in 2004, they had 20 lawsuits against him at the same time. And this was thanks to, I'm going to name him, Mark Elias, who is their lead head of Dirty Tricks. He's in their legal department of Dirty Tricks. When we had a Green running, Matthew Ho, who was a major protester, a member of the State Department actually, who resigned to protest the surge in Afghanistan. So a really courageous peace fighter in his race as a Green for Senate in North Carolina. They actually called people who signed his petitions, pretended that they were the Green Party, and asked them would they please remove their names from the petition. They made the mistake of actually calling the co-chair of the Green Party and telling him that they were the Green Party, asking him to remove his name from the signature. And that's actually recorded. And there is an audio of that that's been covered by the press and is out there on the internet. So yeah, they do this, and that's what they rely on, and it's absolutely outrageous. And your point about, how they keep us off the ballot, how they fight, they fight dirty because they don't have really principles to stand on or policies.
Well, I want to make sure that we all on the same page. I am a firm believer that the United States of America, the empire, is in decline. And we should not feel any kind of way about that. I mean, Great Britain was an empire, now it's just England. France was an empire, now it's just France. What's wrong with just being a country? Martin Luther King, we represent the radical things of Martin Luther King. When I say the radical things, I'm talking about everything he said from 66 to 68. That's what we ride on, okay? Everything from 66 to 68. That's what we ride on. And he was basically talking about, is Malik the dope drummer still here? Malik the dope drummer came through here. For those who don't know, I had shout him out because he's a superstar. Malik the dope drummer came through to show some support. But Martin Luther King said, this is the drum major mentality. We got to be number one. We got to be number one. And that type of attitude is what is driving us to have endless wars. But it's for profit. Make no mistake about it. Now, we talk about this President's weekend, so let me say something about President. President Eisenhower says that every bomb, every bullet, every gun constitutes death from the people. Death. And he's a war hawk. This is the same guy that gave the green light to assassinate Patrice Lumumba, the first democratically elected leader of the Congo, and set up a chain of events that gave us a genocide still occurring today in the Congo. So he's not a good guy, but even a broke clock can be right 2 times a day. Someone else that I want to quote is Jimmy Carter. Yeah, that is my president. That's my president. There's a couple presidents I respect. I respect Lincoln. I respect Roosevelt, Kennedy, and Carter, and maybe Obama, depending on what party it is. But in terms of who I like, I only like Jimmy Carter. He's probably the least violent president we've ever had. But he talks about how America is no longer a democracy, if it ever was. It's an oligarchy. And anyone who's representing this oligarchy cannot say anything to criticize Israel and expect to win. So when we look at the Democratic Party, who is up and being challenged like you've been challenged, and you just mentioned earlier? It's the squad. The most progressive arm of the Democrat is what's been threatened by AIPAC. Ooh, AIPAC's like the boogeyman. AIPAC. AIPAC's coming. And I was just with Congresswoman Barbara Lee last night, and we asked her, how is it that the majority of Republicans, the majority of Democrats, the majority of Americans are for a ceasefire, but we can't have one? And she said one word. Y'all want to guess what the word is? Money. So if Jimmy Carter was not proven correct, I don't know what is. So this is not a democracy. This is an oligarchy ran by what?
Money.
And we have to start kidding ourselves. They're not talking about freedom. They're not talking about democracy. They're not talking about anything else except
Money.
And here's my further proof. If this American concept was worth anything it had written on paper, you would think that the greatest country in the world, number one, right, will at least have their capital as a shining city on the hill. DC, mere 68 square miles, which should have the best schools, the best roads, the best hospitals. It should be an example for the world, correct?
Yes.
But it's the most dangerous city for a black woman of any socioeconomic background to give birth. It has twice the illiteracy rate of the national average, twice the infant mortality rate. And this, if DC was a state, it would have been the most violent state in America in 2022.
Wow.
This is the nation's capital. So, Jill, tell us why, with all the preponderance of this evidence, are people still clinging to the Democratic Party?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's propaganda, it's fear-mongering, it's like the propaganda machine doesn't let people know that there are choices and there are options because people really are thrown under the bus. You were talking about, Martin Luther King and how everything that he said, 60 years ago is even truer today. And one of those things is that my country is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. True back then, even truer now. And part of the consequence of that is that half of our budget in Congress is being spent on wars. And what do we get from those wars? Failed states, mass refugee migrations, and continuing terrorist threats. Look at Libya with open-air slave markets, or Iraq, Syria. Our wars not only fail, they do more than fail. They fail catastrophically, and they cost us $21 trillion, it's estimated, since 2011. Since 2011, we know that we killed 1 million people in Iraq, but we've killed about 6 million in the follow-on to that. So why exactly does this system survive when it endangers us, it impoverishes us, it squanders our resources? And, I think the answer is exactly as you said, because it's an oligarchy, it's kind of a self-sustaining oligarchy. And what fixes that? It's an uprising of small d democratic power. It's an uprising of people like this community that are demanding more. And I think the challenge of the moment right now, and Gaza is kind of the symbol of this. Gaza is sort of the symbol of an empire that has completely run amok. And it is horrifying the American public. But when a bill comes before the Senate, everybody votes for it. Even though 68% of the public is against it, Congress is all for it. Actually, it's the Senate, but I'm sure it will be the same in the House, with the exception of, I think, 2 people who voted against it. So this is like this incredible mismatch of our time right now. We have a world that is in existential crisis. Whatever dimension you want to look at, our healthcare, our schools, housing, where the average renter right now is paying at least 30% of their income to try to keep a roof over their heads. If you're paying 30% for rent, you don't have the cash that you need for everything else, including your student debt, which Joe Biden started up again, those payments, even though that didn't have to happen. So people are sick and tired of being thrown under the bus, and a system that serves the economic and political elites. And that's what's so exciting. The polls right now say 63% of Americans are saying they've had it with the two-party system. And we know already that black voters, Hispanic voters, youth have already declared, even before they've heard about the other options, at least 20% in each of those groups have said they're not voting for same old. And, what we need are courageous supporters of the people, leaders, to stand up and say, we're going in a new direction. We need a complete reboot here of our political system so that it's powered by people, it's not powered by big money. And why are we here? We're here because we're in a system that's kind of locked in and it's really dug in, but we are getting hurt, every one of us. So it's kind of the perfect storm right now for change. And I am so grateful to you, Kimon, for having the courage and the insight to stand up now. I think you're going to be leading a wave here in DC, and you're an example that we'll be holding up around the country. This is what we need to be doing everywhere.
All right. Well, I'm honored to be part of the Green Party. I'm not new to the party, actually. I had switched to the Democratic Party just to challenge a 34-year incumbent in the Democratic primary because it was 3 candidates, and one of them was a convicted felon. Not no shade to convicted felons. Some of my heroes, my favorite heroes, are convicted felons. But his felony was not honorable. It was for taking a bribe. Michael Brown, not that Michael Brown, this Michael Brown. And he shouldn't go down in history as the first to put the money to his ear. The rappers got it from him. I don't know if y'all know this, but unfortunately his $50,000 stack of money was from the FBI. And so he's the #1 contender for the 34-year incumbent here in the Democratic primary. So I was okay with a 3-way race under those circumstances. But I went with Alice Walker to Cuba. Plus, was sponsored a trip to Cuba, and I spent some time with her. Alice Walker, for those who don't know, Color Purple, all that good stuff, is a staunch advocate for the self-determination of Palestinians. They tried to ruin her legacy because of her staunch advocacy for against the apartheid Israel. And it was like, well, we're going to stump on your legacy. She said, I don't care what you say about me now. What do you think I don't care about what you're going to say when I'm dead? You can have it. So shout out to Alice Walker.
Yes,
give her a round of applause.
Yeah, let's hear it for Alice Walker. I want to share one thing that she said, which is that, and this is something I think you want to say to yourself like every day. This is something that just gives so much courage and purpose to our movements. What Alice Walker said was, the biggest way that people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. You got it. Don't let them fool you. Thank you, Alice Walker.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. You get a dap with that one. You took the words out of my mouth. That's real talk right there. So, and that's what I told her is my favorite quote. That's my favorite Alice Walker quote. Those that know me well know I repeat it. I actually was misquoting. I would say the greatest power is convincing people don't have any. But in her actual quote, she was accurately repeating it right there. So thank you for correcting me again. Shout out to Alice Walker. Yeah. So while I was there, the field of the Democratic primary went from 3 to 7. And so in that crowded primary, that's why we need ranked choice voting, because you can't split the opposition vote 6 or 7 ways and unseat an incumbent. All right? Right here in the city, the mayor has less than 50% approval rating. Less than 50%. But unfortunately, the majority of the opposition was split between Robert White, Trayon White, Barry White, Maurice White, all these people was splitting the opposition vote, and that's why she's still in the seat. So that is why they are against having ranked choice voting. They're against for incorporating things that's challenging their authority and shaking up the status quo. And that's why we have to begin to think outside the box. We've been sold a false set of choices, paper or plastic. That's it. When in all actuality, you don't have to use paper or plastic. You can bring your own bag, and it's recyclable. And we can bring our own bag to this table of thought over and over, our own bag. And let me share this with you. This is a quote from Edward Bernays. He is the most important man you've never heard of. All right, y'all ready for this?
Yeah.
Edward Bernays. I take the glasses off this one. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society. In almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or our ethical thinking, we are dominated by a relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind. This is from his book, Propaganda. Edward Bernays. Every corporation in America has a department called Public Relations. Public Relations is the PG-13 version of the title Propaganda.
Yeah, that's great.
This is the reason why you associate bacon and eggs with breakfast.
Yeah.
This is the man that changed the Pentagon's name from the War Department to the Department of Defense. Sounds better. We get more funding. Defense. Go defense. Yeah. I want y'all to understand this. We have to really, really wake up. And they are so callous in their desperation to maintain this system and this status quo that they'll tell you one of those woke people, huh? You one of those unconscious people, huh? Never allow them to use our words as a pejorative. And let me say this. We're all familiar, at least we should be, with Martin Luther King's last speech. But we're not as familiar with his next to his last speech, which was delivered right here in Washington, D.C., March 31st, 1968. The title of that speech was Remaining Awake During a Great Revolution. He goes on to tell the story. I was confused this part. Y'all help me out. The guy that went to sleep for 20 years. I was confused. Rip Van Winkle with Rumpelstiltskin. Which one is it? Rip Van Winkle. Okay, thank you. This is a smart audience. That's what the boys have a smart audience. Jill Stein had to bring out smart people. Okay, so he went to sleep for 20 years. But one of the things they leave out in that story, Martin Luther King talked about in his speech. He said at the foot of the mountain, it said King George. And when he went up to the mountain and was slept for 20 years and came back down, the sign said President Washington. He had slept literally through a revolution. And so Martin Luther King going to say that far too often people find themselves living in periods of great social change. Yet they fail to develop the new ideas, the new mental responses that the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through a revolution. I submit to you that is the quintessential definition of stay woke. And they try to silence that messenger, but sometimes the messenger becomes a message. And I want to bring that message to the table in this 2024 election right here in the nation's capital.
I want to just be sure to mention that there's a petition drive going on here in DC and over here. So we've got some petitions. And Kelly, you have some petitions as well. Can you tell us how many signatures do we need? Does anybody know what it's going to come to?
We need a total of 37. I think we're at 15. So we just have a handful left, really.
37,000.
No.
3,700.
37.
All right, so this is a piece of cake. Yeah, we can do this tonight, basically. Yeah, so be sure you sign this petition tonight. Yep.
Who's doing ballot access in Maryland?
I'm sorry, for the viewing audience, the question is who's doing ballot access in Maryland?
And Gallus, maybe? I can double check.
Yeah.
I wanted to try to partner up with somebody because I didn't want to be a lone wolf.
Yeah. There's also Tim Willard.
Great.
Yeah, that's
Great.
right. That's
So
right.
if you,
Shout out to Tim Willard.
yeah, if you go to our website and you sign up for ballot access, we'll get you plugged in with tools and training and a team and a coordinated effort. So we'll do that for you, and we'll do that all across the country. And just for you to know, we are currently on the ballot in like 21 states.
21 states, the Green Party is on the ballot.
And those states include the biggest and most difficult and most expensive states like California and Texas and Florida and Arizona. So actually, while it's 21 states, it's actually 75% of the work that's already behind us. We have to raise still about $1 million. But the other candidates, you know, people think like, oh, there's all these choices for progressive candidates for president. Well, actually, there's not, because the other candidates are not on the ballot, except in 1 or 2 states. And if you're only on the ballot in 1 or 2 states, you're not really threatening empire. You're not actually contesting for power. So we are the one campaign, the one anti-genocide, anti-war, pro-worker campaign that's actually on the way right now to ballot access across the country. So the reality check within the next couple of months is that there's going to be one alternative campaign for shutting down genocide and endless war and supporting working people. So this is a great time for us to be unifying, especially because the same old Wall Street and war candidates are going to be splitting that vote several ways. So you've got a Democrat, a Republican, you've got RFK, and you have no labels. So a situation could take place easily. It's not hard to envision. If some of the right things continue to develop, we could be really riding a tsunami while the parties of war and Wall Street are dividing the vote 4 ways. So don't let them talk you into thinking a transformation isn't possible right now in this election.
So here's the generic question. It's the only generic question I would ever give you. But what do you say to people that say that a vote for the Green Party is a vote for Trump? What do you say to them?
I say candidates don't own your vote. They have to earn your vote. And to say that a Democrat is entitled to your vote and to disparage your vote if you're not voting Democrat, that's just nonsense. They don't own your vote. They have to earn it. And if you look at the most spoiled election for the Democrats ever, it was 2010. What happened in 2010? The Democrats lost 1,000 state rep seats. They lost 64 seats in Congress. They lost 12 seats in the Senate, and they lost 13 governorships. Why did they lose so many seats? Was there some spoiler around? No, there weren't any third-party candidates that were contesting at that point. What happened was that they had bailed out Wall Street and thrown out millions and millions of homeowners. They have abandoned their base, and that was really evident in 2010, and they got really whipped in that election. But it didn't stop there. The Democrats have continued to throw working people, people of color, immigrants, youth under the bus. So that's why they're losing, and they try to blame it on us and say that we're the spoilers. No, they're actually spoiling it for themselves by abandoning their base.
Please come up. We're going to get to a Q&A in just a moment because we have her for a few minutes. So if you can hold your question for a second.
I just have a question that's make a slight correction. I think you might want to refer to it as the DC State of Green Party with a long history in DC because I don't know how many people know about the State of Party. We've been here for 30, 40 years, and we're not just a new upcomer in DC. I just want people to understand that.
Okay, he was saying, I'm trying to reiterate for prosperity, that the State Party had a long history in D.C. that spans beyond Green Party being on the ballot in DC. That's pretty much summarizing what you just said.
That's not exactly accurate, no.
Okay, please again. That's why I wanted you to come up.
Okay, well, I mean, if you talk, a lot of people hear the name, people don't even hear the name, so you think it's something there. So, 5 seconds difference. DC State was.
That's why I want you to come to the mic. That's what I'm saying.
Talk loud.
Okay, no, but I needed to transmit to the powers that be to put you on record, so I'm not the only person being investigated, brother. Okay.
Okay, the DC Statehood Party started back in 62 or 63. There was an incident that we had to. Okay.
Yeah, we want to see.
DC Statehood Party started in like 62 or 63. The beginning was we did not have any home rule or anything. We simply had the House District Committee running DC. One of the people here named bad name, started the DC Statehood Party and protested that. We worked at it and protested enough until when Johnson became the president, President Johnson, he chose to give us a bit of statehood and give us a home rule. We say that time home rule. We elected, they appointed Walter Washington back in 63, I think it was. So the Statehood Party has been fighting for statehood in DC for 40 years now, actually. And in 2001, I think it was, the Statehood Party and the Green Party talked together and decided, well, we're working for the same thing in the same place, let's merge together. And it was the first merger of a party in Washington, D.C. ever. It became the D.C. Statehood Green Party. So I just wanted to,
What year was that?
I think it was 1999, 98. So since then, it's been the official name is the D.C. Statehood Green Party. Then we are, in fact, affiliated with the Green Party, but with the D.C. Statehood Party because we want to keep pointing that out to us that D.C. Statehood needs to be a thing. So I don't know how many of you have heard of it before, but that's the real deal.
All right.
That's brother Thomas. When we spell it out for the FBI, that's T-H. Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brother Smith. We appreciate you correcting the record. And I also want to correct the record. I think a better response to the question, the generic question, I vote for the Green Party, vote for Trump. The answer I would like to hear is, okay, we can excuse a genocide, but we cut the line at a third party. All righty then. So the floor is yours, Dr. Stein. You're still laughing. Okay. That's fine. I'm looking for a quote from Brother Noam Chomsky right now. I wanted to share. But let me say that one of the things that is very important for us to realize is that we have the power to change the system. Okay? Don't let them convince you otherwise. Just in your lifetime, look how many things have changed. I remember being arrested for a little piece of a joint. A little piece. Now, you can walk in the establishment and purchase your choice. You know? I've seen that change in our lifetime. You know? I've seen that change in our lifetime. You know? Who would have ever thought that they would have saw a black president in their lifetime? I remember people saying, you never see that, you know? Who would have ever thought that Trump would have been president? I mean, like, come on, like, you know, if anything, Trump should be the great liberator. Because if he can do it, oh my God. You know, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Really, like, seriously. And one of the things that you can do is challenge the system. You can. Because one of the things, I got fired from the post. I wanted to be very clear on the story that pushed you over the edge and got you up in arms. But the thing for me was I got fired from the post office for making anti-war statements to a congressman's wife. So ironically, I'm not running for a congressman because they wouldn't make anti-war statements. How about that?
When was this?
This was 2001. No, 2022 I got fired. 2001 when the incident occurred. Because the post office like a union and it took a minute for them to really fire me. But anyway, real quick, I could have pretended I didn't hear what she said. But I felt that I had to have a voice for all of those who could not speak. Because black people in America, we had to take a lot of garbage to survive. And I remember my great-grandfather smiling when he didn't have to smile, and scratching when he wasn't itching, that type of thing. And I vowed that I would never do that. You know, no disrespect to my great-grandfather, he did what he had to do. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. But I don't have to do that. And when I told my parents I got fired, my parents, people that love me, boy, you lost that good government job. Maybe if you go back and apologize, you can get your job back. I'm like, I'm not apologizing. I remember I said, woo, woo. And I said, and it's probably for the best because I wasn't even happy. They was like, happy? Who said it's supposed to be happy? It's a goddamn job. You're supposed to. And so we are breaking free from that. They used to tell us that we couldn't wear our hair this way. We had to cut our hair. We couldn't wear loud clothes like this. You know, look at Senator Fetterman. Is his name Fetterman? He dressed like a bum. Yeah. But somebody's gonna say something about my fashionable attire? Really? We are breaking the mold. We are no longer confined. And speaking of a mold, how do they describe America? They call it a melting pot. What is a melting pot? A melting pot is something that changes the physical properties or whatever you put in it to fit into a mold that someone has designed. That's why they tell you what's the word? You have to confirm. You have to conform. You have to conform. You have to fit in. No, you should stand out. And you should stand up. And I think now is the time. How many times they're going to run this game down? This good cop, bad cop. The Republicans, Democrats may have some problems, but the Republicans are way worse. We've already seen Trump. We've seen Trump, and we survived. We've seen Biden, and we're not happy. So what we want to do? What's the definition of insanity, boys and girls, brothers, sisters, friends, and enemies? Doing the same exact thing, expecting a different outcome. There's a viral video we have created on Facebook, social media platforms, and you will see Republicans denying America's not a racist country. You'll see Democrats agreeing with them. Yes, America is not a racist country. What's the difference between those parties? They passed a resolution last year saying that Israel is not a racist country. So it's a racist country telling that another country is not racist either. And both parties agree on this. But we're supposed to go along with that. Again, the third party only needs 5% of the national vote to change the game in America. If everyone in this room could commit, everyone inside our voice could commit to just convincing 5 people of that, because there's plenty of people that's not going to vote for Biden, right? We need to convince, starting with my sister Rashida Tlaib, Representative from Michigan, God bless her. And Rashida, I hope you receive this message well. Rashida has a lot of constituents who are not voting for Biden. And we can convince them to vote for the third party, the Green Party in this election. That could be the tipping point for changing the game in America and bringing this monopoly. Jill, what do you think we need to do to educate the dumbest people in the world, this is American citizens, and you don't think I'm playing, spend some time outside America, and you'll see just how dumb Americans are. You know, some of them will actually inject themselves with bleach to, tap Americans. You know, wrestling is real, tap Americans. You know, what do we say to them to get them to understand that they're not voting for Biden, that they should be voting third party?
Yeah, so we say abandon Biden, dump Trump, and join Jill, is what we've been saying.
Don't stop.
And let's see, so we were at the rally for Palestine in January with 500,000 people here in DC. How many were out here for that? Totally amazing. Organized actually by the Muslim community, and totally amazing event. And that's where, this idea of abandoning Biden has originated. And that's, now it's the black ministers who are also signing on to that and saying, hey, I think they're onto something. Did you hear about that? Like maybe 2 weeks ago, there was a group of 1,000 black ministers saying that we kind of like what the Muslim community is up to, and we got to think about that as well, because what's Biden, done for us lately? So, yeah, and then you've got youth. What's Biden done for youth? Well, he restarted their loan payments, when they were called off during COVID. Biden started them up again when they didn't need to. Biden created the whole loan crisis, creating these student loans where bankruptcy could not, you're in a horrible economic situation and you can't do to your student loans what you would do to any other kind of loan. Joe Biden gave the student loan crisis to young people. So, Joe Biden, the Democrats pretend that they are the solution to the climate crisis. I don't know if you've heard about these 22 liquid natural gas plants. I want to say a word about this because the media doesn't cover it. They carry out this propaganda like that the Democrats are the saviors on the climate. They're actually not. These 22 LNG plants, that's liquid natural gas. That's methane. It's like the most polluting form of carbon that there is. And they're building 22 of these liquid natural gas export plants. The reason they're doing that is because they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline and created a huge market so that they could then sell that gas to Europe. But it devastates our local communities and the offshore ecosystems and the oceans to do this, not to mention the carbon footprint of these 22 plants. So these 22 plants are the equivalent, according to the Sierra Club, of 440 new coal plants. So we have Joe Biden, the environmental gift to humanity, to thank for 440 new coal plants. Now, he did just put this on hold because he's getting so much pushback, and now he's trying to claim that he's this great environmental hero because he's put on pause his own incredibly disastrous and treacherous plan. So, yeah, just to make the point that the Democrats are not our friend, they are not helping us, and the idea that they are the lesser evil, it just doesn't hold anymore. Who is it that's been, giving the thumbs up to Israel for this genocide in Gaza? That's been Joe Biden and the Biden administration that has been swearing allegiance to Israel and to genocide all along here. Who is it that is persecuting and blacklisting the opponents of genocide, the Palestinian rights advocates on campus? We have basically Democrats and Republicans too. Both of them are just slamming young people and just erasing our rights of free speech, protest, and declaring this treachery to be standing up to try to stop genocide. So the Democrats are not the good guys here. They're just not. And we're saying it's time to forget the lesser evil. It's time to stand up and fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because in fact they do.
Absolutely. I know we got some questions. If we have some questions, if you line right here, we'll get to those in just a second. You have to come up or have a seat right here. So we have a question right here, and we're gonna make sure we get an opportunity to hear from you guys. I'm still looking for my non-Chomsky quote, but the notion of the lesser two evils always struck me because I'm like, it's still evil. It's like, I'm gonna kill you. Y'all remember Kunta Kinte? When they called him, they cut his foot off, they showed him a knife, they showed him an axe, they showed him something else, and he chose the axe. The last thing I get it over quick. And it's funny I should bring that up, matter of fact, because while I was in Cuba, one of the things that you should be mindful of concerning yourself with U.S. foreign policy that emanates out of this city is that it's not just the 62-year plus year blockade that is punishing Cubans unnecessarily and unjustly. Cuba has a superior healthcare system than America's for-profit sick care system. And part of their superior healthcare system, they developed a treatment that makes diabetic amputations unheard of. I'm gonna say that again. Diabetic amputations is almost unheard of in Cuba because of this treatment. I asked the ambassador at the U.S. Embassy that's flying a Ukrainian flag in the U.S. Embassy in Havana right now, which is very weird, right? It's kind of like Fetterman dressing like a bumper flying an Israeli flag. I'm like, what country are you working for? But anyway, I asked them, why don't they allow that treatment in here to benefit the American people? How many of y'all know somebody got diabetes and had an amputation? I got several people in my family. You know what he told me? We have to protect U.S. interests.
They want us to be safe.
It's in their interest to chop your foot off like Kunta Kinte. They make more money from that than for you to be healthy walking around here living longer. I want y'all to understand this. This is your government denying treatment to prevent that type of barbaric actions. You know, I mean, I saw Soul Food. They chopped off Big Mama's diabetes, and they chopped her foot off before she left. Completely unheard of in the so-called third world country of Cuba, the so-called terrorist state of Cuba. All right? But what I was saying is that Biden won the last election simply because I'm not Trump.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it was. That's what it was. That's not gonna work this time. And for those of you who have a short-term memory, Joe Biden gave the eulogy to Strom Thurmond funeral. And those who don't know who Strom Thurmond was, he was one of the longest-serving senators in the history of America, and he was a racist. But they said, well, he fathers some black children. Plenty of slave owners would father black children, bro. That's not qualified. So I want you to understand, look what you really are fighting for. And again, it's the two oldest candidates in the history of this election. I think this exemplifies the desperation of this system to maintain itself. We have a question. Jill, you can respond, then we can take the question and respond.
Yeah. I just want to underscore what Kimon just said, that this is the right time. This is the perfect time. And nothing is more doable than elections in your community. I think it's doable at the national level as well. I think we can turn the White House into a greenhouse, and we shouldn't let anybody tell us that we can't.
I like that.
Yeah.
Say that again.
We're going to turn the White House into a greenhouse. And I think we need to turn the representative for the state of Washington, D.C., we need to turn that representative into a green representative. And I think that's doable. And I really want to encourage everyone to please sign up. Don't wait for someone else to make this happen. We can make this happen. And it's canvassing, it's getting the word out, it's fundraising, it's showing up at events, it is, it's leading the charge on whatever issues are really critical in the community, whether it is housing, whether it is police violence, whether it is healthcare. This is about raising the flag and turning out and showing that we are a force to contend with. People are really hungry for our voices to be heard. They are sick to death of this political system that has thrown us under the bus. So I really want to see everybody in this room getting 10 people to be a part of this campaign. And let's get this guy elected. Let's do it.
Let's get Dr. Stein 5% of the national vote on the debate stage. All right. You can use my microphone so Jill can respond. All right. She's a distinct guest. It's my night, but she's a distinct guest. Jabari X. Jabari, introduce yourself. I will make sure everybody is sharing the investigation with me. Okay.
I just want to make a comment about politics. small p politics. In 1988, I worked on a campaign of a person who became the first woman and the first black person to be on the ballot for president of the United States, and most of you have never heard of her. Her name is Lenore Fulani from New York, New Alliance Party. I heard her make a speech at UDC that was part of a Farrakhan event, and she ran in 1988 because Jesse Jackson refused to run as an independent. One of the things that I find very lacking is that politics is not elections. Politics is everything you do to build up to an election that we don't ever do anymore. The Black Panther Party was one of the most effective political parties in the history of this country, and they never ran anybody for election, right? But they started the breakfast program for children, which got co-opted by the federal government. They were putting up street lights. They got street lights put and stop signs put at corners because they were teaching people how to go to the city council in Chicago and other places and say, we're going to deal with immediate issues and show you how to exercise power. That doesn't happen in politics because everything is about elections. And that's why you cannot win an election the year of when nobody's ever heard of you. Chokwe Lumumba and what they did in Jackson, Mississippi, if you don't know, Chokwe Lumumba was one of the lead attorneys for the Black Panther Party. Chokwe Lumumba and a group of some of them were former.
You gotta tell them that he was Tupac's man. You know,
Well, okay, well,
tell them Tupac's lawyer, then they got you.
well, okay.
Okay.
But he was a black, yeah, but because Masudu School and all them were Black Panthers. Right, but the key is not that, because it isn't about Tupac Shakur and rapping, it's the fact that Tupac came out of a Black Panther lineage where they were not spouting just rhetoric, they were changing society, right? The reason Asada Shakur is in Cuba, because they were able to break her out of prison and get her ass to Cuba. And they still don't know who did it. Well, the people now wrote the book about it. But the point is, we don't have none of those kinds of infrastructures. We don't have none of those kinds of political consciousness. And you don't do it 10 months before the election, the year of the election. Chokwe Lumumba and those people put a 10-year plan to get control of Jackson, Mississippi, which is why now his son, because Chokwe died, he became first person on the city council. They got 2 people on the city council. They got 7 people on the city council. They control the city council. Then they ran, and Chokwe Lumumba became mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi, goddamn Mississippi, the capital of one of the most, if not the, they all have probably competitions of who the most racist state in the union is, but nobody studies, very few people study. How did those black people with no formal political party affiliation do that? And we don't study that, which is why we don't study Lenore Fulani's campaign, because Lenore Fulani, that you never heard of, is written out of the book. This is 1988. I was her campaign person in Baltimore.
Is there a question that you brought?
Yeah, the question is, when are we going to actually engage in the activity of politics, not from the point of view of elections, but from the point of view of establishing a set of goals and principles and educating people to say, the reason you go to the vote because you got something to vote for that you created on your own, and not be dependent and waiting on other people to beg them to do things that they created the problems in the first place. And that's what I see is the most fundamental deficiency of how anything that's non-democratic or Republican is dealt with in this country. Because after this election is over, there's going to be no discussion, no development, no building of anything. And the only other last thing I say, if you haven't signed up or if you don't know about ballot initiative 83 in DC, that's the Right Choice Voting Initiative in DC. And if you haven't signed the petition, you can go online and sign it. But definitely come out. If you don't do anything else in November, if you don't feel like you want to vote for anybody, come out and vote for Initiative 83.
Well, hopefully you will vote for more than Initiative 83. We need your vote. We need your vote. Hopefully, you want to respond to that?
I want to completely agree that if all you do is run for elections, you have no base, and you have no connection to the community, and you're just going to ask people to come out and vote for you for what, and I agree completely. At the same time, I want to say that I don't know any Greens like that. I don't know any Greens who only run for office who aren't also fighting for their community, for housing and for clean air and for jobs and for unions and Medicare for all. And it's a local thing, and I think it's not, we don't want to divide ourselves so that some of us are working in social movements and some of us are working in elections. I think it's gotta be, they have to feed each other. They totally do. And I agree with you that the Panthers are an incredible example of, a really powerful community organization that really strengthened the community. So I want to agree with you and really encourage people to keep doing that. I don't know anybody who's a Green that thinks that you can just run for elections and then run away from your community. It just, I don't see it. It won't work. So
There's no effective Green Party in DC.
that's right. No, there's really not.
We're going to rebuild it.
Yeah, exactly. And let me also just add, it's very hard if you're going to be a non-corporate, grassroots, people-powered party. You have a lifespan of about 10 years, and then they're usually gone. And this is the struggle. I mean, look at the Panthers and what they were up against, and we get, COINTELPRO after us. In my home state in Massachusetts, the Green Party also merged with the Rainbow Coalition before Jesse Jackson stole it. We had a Rainbow Coalition started by
He did do that.
He did do that.
The white woman saying so. I had to co-sign. Yes, he did do that. He stole it from
Mel King.
Fred Hampton. And you don't have to be a Green Party member to vote Green in a general election. Okay?
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
All right.
And what I want to say is that when these two parties merged, and we had a city councilor who was a total powerhouse on the Boston City Council as a Green Rainbow legislator. And the FBI did a sting on him because he had such a powerful community base and threw him into jail for 3 years. So these are just the kind of things that you are up against if you are a people-powered party and you really challenge power. I myself was investigated by the Senate Intelligence Committee for 3 years following the last election because they don't like what I'm doing either, and yeah. If we challenge power, this is what happens. And it makes it very hard to maintain a party if you're also fighting for your life against the security agencies. And, and you're locked out of the press and you're so-called blacklisted, you're not allowed into debates. So it is a huge uphill battle. And what happened to the Panthers is repeated over and over again. But what gives me, I wouldn't say hope exactly, but just fight. It's about a fight. And the Green Party has managed to hang in here and fight. And yeah, we're a weak party, but find one other anti-corporate, anti-war party that has survived for decades, and we keep living to fight again. That's right, there are zero out there. And, look at the socialist parties who were doing great stuff in the early 1900s, and then with the Red Scare, they were basically locked out of the ballot. And so they were beaten back from a national status to a city councilor here and there. And the Greens have managed to maintain our national fight. And the whole reason that we have power in this election is because we watchdog ballot access, and we have people. RFK, who's a total warmonger, he says it will cost him $20 million to get on the ballot. It will cost us $1 million because we are a grassroots organization. We watchdog this. We have people who fight the power and who fight for power and contest for power. So it's an imperfect organization, but compared to all the others that have ever existed, it is the one and only survivor. It is the powerhouse. So I urge you, make it better. Let's work with what we got and let's go from there.
Definitely. How y'all doing? Good evening. Hi. My name is Azira the Poet. What's busboys without some poetry, right?
Yeah.
So, trap or die. More like we were trapped to die. And a system designed to never let us succeed. Different skin tones and colors, but we all bleed. I said different skin tones and colors, but we all bleed. My country, tears of deep. Man, I'm sick of the bullshit. I'm feeling like a purge coming in. I need a full clip. Watching my city change the best fit the needs of our light-skinned residents. I mean, I'm not gonna fake like I wasn't pressed to have a black president. But it's all clear and evident who's still in control. Puppets politicking, protecting their role. This land stole from our forefathers. Black men don't be absent because our children need their fathers. I said, black men don't be absent because our children need their fathers. Mothers unite. Mothers unite. Everybody unite. Because I'm so suited and booted to fight. Like how my great-great-grandmother was always ready to fight. Where's the light? Because I got it shining on what really matters. Education stole from us, but we still getting our masters. I said, education stole from us, but we still getting our masters. Oh, you didn't know the ratio and facts? No, boo-boo. Black people don't just trap and rap. You just only have access to keep you in your trap, and I'm just trying to learn the 50 shades of black. I'm trying to comb every night. Vote Freeman, vote Jill. Vote Freeman, vote Jill. Can y'all say that with me one time? Vote Freeman, vote Jill. Vote Freeman, vote Jill. Hold up. Vote Freeman, vote Jill. Vote Freeman, vote Jill. Hold up. Happy Black History Month, y'all. Thank y'all.
Whoa. That's. Go for it.
Okay. So a question I would have is in regards to more of expert sort of infrastructure for developing policy and making sure that policies actually correspond to what you expect them to correspond to. I guess it is my impression, at least, that basically corporate does all policy development currently. So the only real currently existing alternative to that I know of is basically the open source and open research communities, and only subsets of those that aren't really, I guess, corporate. So, I guess in terms of building credibility for different policies and developing policies that under deep scrutiny from an interdisciplinary standpoint would stand up to scrutiny, it would be kind of, I think, critical to have a way to gather people for that, or I would assume, or whatever infrastructure you guys are using from that for a managerial standpoint. Do you have ideas around that in terms of stuff? Because I guess in terms of policies, you can see in almost any locality and in respect to unions and companies, you can see that things that people put labels on don't correspond to what's actually happening. Like you have housing policies where you can look at the ratios and see the fact that there's actually more funding going into unaffordable housing than affordable housing on an affordable housing. there's lots of different examples like that. And you need some sort of system for pooling expert opinion interdisciplinary, because you never know which field the actual appropriate facts will come from in a lot of cases. So it's on that.
Great. Okay. Really, really good question. So, how do we develop good, compelling policy and get credibility around it? So, I know exactly what you're talking about. If you're like trying to work with the legislature or with Congress and you get these unreadable bills that are hundreds of pages long, and usually they're not released until the night before a vote anyhow. So these are smoke screens from the start. These are not intended to serve you. These serve the industries who write them. And, there are more lobbyists on Capitol Hill than there are Congress people. Lobbyists are basically running the show. And
It's like 4 or 5 to 1, something racial like that.
it's huge. And I think you have to be like, you can't be fooled about this stuff. That this is, you have to assume that if it's coming from the corporate parties, it is BS. It's intended to fool you and manipulate you. You can look at these studies, speaking of studies and experts and credibility, there were these political scientists who did a huge study on what gets passed through Congress. The study was called Gillens and Page. They were at Northwestern and Princeton. And they did this huge review of exactly what passes through Congress over a period of 10 or 20 years. And what they documented was that what gets through Congress's agenda and the bills that they pass are all based on the money that's coming in campaign contributions and lobbyists. That's what writes the agenda, that's what writes the bills, and they don't serve us. Furthermore, nothing passes in Congress right now. Congress is in complete gridlock. They'll pass stuff if it's a war budget, or if it's a favor for Wall Street. That's what they do. They pass very, very little. So to my mind, the whole system really has to be challenged, and I would not take anything at face value. On the other hand, it's important to know that the progressive agenda over the last 10 or 15 years has really been generated by grassroots groups. So Medicare for All was put on the national scene by Ralph Nader when he ran as a candidate for president in the year 2000. Abolishing student debt was launched by our campaign in 2012. Likewise, calling for free public higher education and technical school, that was launched by us. Putting reparations on the national agenda was also launched by our campaign in 2012. And this stuff, yeah. A Green New Deal was also launched by the Green Party. Yeah. So there are nonprofits and grassroots political parties that are doing the research and doing the right stuff. And, I think it's really about organizing. It's about running strong campaigns, and it's about pushing the envelope. So many, nonprofits as well have been completely co-opted now in our universities. It's not, in my mind, it's not like there's some magic bullet out there, but there are great people who are doing wonderful work and research, and many of them seem to find our political parties and they find us as campaigns. And I would encourage people who feel like you have some expertise to share to contact us and let us know. I think we have to lift this stuff up as grassroots groups at the same time that we hold out a lot of skepticism for what we're offered from the traditional parties and from Congress and our legislatures. They've been just so corrupted. Thank you.
Next question.
Hey,
Hey, Jill
come
and
on.
Kimoni, thank you both for running, and what a great talk tonight. I just wanted to get y'all's thoughts on migrants and borders. It seems to me like there's like the discourse around this issue has been changing recently for the and not for the better. I'm hearing even people like Dennis Kucinich talk about like we need to shut down the border, and there's So he was on the Jimmy Dore show recently, and Jimmy Dore's on this big like anti-immigrant kick. He always tries to caveat what he's saying is, oh, I'm not trying to demonize these desperate people. I'm just saying, right. He's like, well, I'm just saying if we can't afford. If we're not going to spend money to solve the homelessness problem in our own country, then why are we allowing this open border and giving money to these migrants? And I don't know how true. I'm just as disinformed and misinformed as like most Americans, so I don't know any facts or really what's going on. I know how I feel about like just human beings. Well, kind of like Forrest Gump, I'm not a smart man, but I do know what love is. I think that borders are imaginary lines in the sand that were created by, people that are, don't have any real authority to decide who's allowed to be where, who can, so to me, it's just kind of arbitrary to say, like, you're not allowed to cross this line or, you know what I mean? Like, so that's how I feel. But,
Thank you.
so I just want to hear what y'all would say, like, okay, well, if you were king for a day in America, what would you do, I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
I love to hear what you got to say, but I have to first admit that I want to apologize on behalf of the Black delegation for all those who mimic the talking points of our right-wing racist gatekeepers. Because whenever I hear Black people say, oh, those people are going to come here and steal our jobs, like, what are you talking about? Because I don't hear that stuff when the Ukrainians come over here and they get permanent visas. What is it called? Visas, the green card? And rightfully so. They're fleeing what? A conflict zone. But they're fleeing a conflict zone that was created by someone else. These people are fleeing conflict zones that was created by this country. Okay, they're fleeing policies and conditions that this country has created. And how dare they turn around and say, we don't want them here. They're basically throwing rocks and hiding their hands. The same Edward Bernays was telling you about, he was also famous for overthrowing the Democratically elected government in Guatemala. It was, you know where they get the name Banana Republic? That's where it comes from. Because it was Chiquita Banana Company didn't like the conditions that their workers was. How dare they fight for equal pay and rights? And so they crushed them. The CIA did that. And you know what they do in Mexico and Iran, Contra scandal, Nicaragua. They have been fermenting destabilization in the Central America, Latin America, the Monroe Doctrine. You goes on, the list goes on and on and on. Haiti, list goes on and on. Venezuela, list goes on and on. They create these conditions, and then they want to act like they're the innocent victim when these people are trying to flee to go closer to the master's house because that's the only place safely they can find it. So how dare you? I'm talking to my people. How dare you sit here and side with our oppressor on their talking points? And it just breaks my heart whenever I hear it. So I want to apologize on behalf of the Black delegation.
I love it. All right. Yeah, I'm going to give a round of applause. Yeah. And I think that sort of summarizes it. That the solution to the migrant crisis is to stop creating it in the first place. Through war, through regime change operations, where are the migrants coming from? From Guatemala, from El Salvador, from Honduras, from Nicaragua. How about we end the sanctions on Cuba and Venezuela, for example? Let's shut down the migrant problem. Stop destabilizing these economies. How about we fix the climate problem? Because we're going to have According to the UN, we're going to have 1 billion climate migrants by 2050. So there's one we can help. How about the drug problem? How about we call off the war on drugs that creates so much violence, and we legalize, starting with marijuana, but going on from there, because the minute you legalize, you have basically pulled the rug out from under the violent drug trade. So that could happen on day one of a Stein administration, that we basically pull the rug out from under this migrant crisis by legalizing drugs and by dealing with substance abuse as a public health problem and not a criminal problem. So this is fixable. And in the meantime, we have a responsibility to deal with the migrants whom we have displaced from their homes. People do not want to get into a boat or cross the river unless it's safer to do that than it is to stay where they are. So let's stop making it dangerous for people to stay where they are. Yeah, so this is fixable. And in the meantime, let's remember that our cultural wealth is all about diversity. Diversity is what makes America great. It is about our cultural wealth. So let's stop bashing immigrants and the source of that wealth. And, and I have to acknowledge it's not just immigrants, it's also people who were brought here as slaves and indigenous Americans who are all part of this great cultural diversity. It's, instead of spending billions of dollars on walls that do not keep people out, they simply cost people's lives. Instead of spending that money on ridiculous technology and repressive things like walls, let's provide safe housing and provide the lawyers, the migrant lawyers, and things that are needed to ensure that we have a legal migration process, that people are being checked for serious criminal records, and then, and then we take care of the people whose lives we have upended, who have come here in order to find some little, piece of security and safety. Let's deal with them justly and efficiently. This should not be dumped on cities. This should be a federal expense. Let's provide the lawyers. Let's provide the housing. This is not about confinement. This is not about, restrictive management and a criminalization. Let's deal with this in a righteous way and stop generating the crisis at its source. So this is fixable.
Yeah. And I just want to say real briefly, not no question, I want to say real briefly that I will admit that yes, even a broke clock like Candace Owens can be right 2 times a day, briefly. Okay? So, but aside from that, if you find yourself agreeing with right-wing talking points of anybody on Fox News, formerly or currently, wholeheartedly, then you know you're in the wrong space. Okay? And that is how we should use as a metric in gauging where we are in terms of our political spectrum. Yeah.
Let's get a round of applause.
Yeah.
Our leaders. We got a movement. We got a movement going on. The Green Party is a movement, and the Green Party is about perseverance, resilience, and survival. Because as Sister Stein said, they're the only ones still going. So many parties that started with all kind of hope and promise and were vanquished. I like to say, I'm originally from Amityville, Long Island. My mother is from Grand Cayman and the Cayman Islands. So is my father. They grew up together. They came over here. My mom still got her green card at 83. She's cleaned. She was a maid. She cleaned rich people's home on the North Shore of Long Island. Worked her tail off. You know what I'm saying? My father worked his tail off, became head engineer, the New York City Board of Education, 33 years. Now he's a lawyer, a barrister in Grand Cayman, practicing law for measly over patients, getting people all kinds of money, 6 and 7 figures. But I like to say that
people try to shame you to like, people have insulted me for saying, I want to vote for Jill Stein. I'm supporting the Green Party. That's crazy. Like one guy said to me today, don't waste your vote on Jill Stein. The Democratic Party needs you. And I'm like, they're against Trump, but they can't tell you one thing they're for. When Jill Stein is for pro-peace, pro-affordable housing, pro-labor, everything that's good, that's going to help working class people. You know what I'm saying? Give them some boots so they can pull themselves up. And I just want to say, we have a movement going on, and it is just starting. And you could be the seeds, and you could be on the front lines and be proud. You know what I'm saying? In the future, to say I was a part of that, and it's all about making the country better, and it's all about improving people's lives, because people's lives. My parents bought a house in Massapequa, Long Island for $35,000. That's dead today. That dream is dead today. You know what I'm saying? I had a friend who just died of COVID. He was 52. I'm 52. He was living at home with his parents. He went to North Carolina Central University, all that, and died at home in his bedroom, and nobody even remembered him. He fell into a deep depression, wasn't even on social media, so nobody hardly even knows he's dead. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, so support these, let's get behind this and let's get active.
All right. One of the things that breaks my heart in this city is that we don't look at the world in our politics. This is the nation's capital, it's not Cleveland. So we're supposed to be looking at the world locally, nationally, and internationally. Okay? And sometimes we don't do that in this city in our politics, and I want to address that. I want to change that. DC has the largest population of El Salvadorans outside of El Salvador, largely because of those rocks being thrown and hide in their hand. It also has the largest population of the regions in Ethiopia, outside of Africa. And so it's always a pleasure to hear from these communities that often don't get a voice in DC politics and in national politics. So I'm very honored to have someone here to represent one of those communities. Thank you.
So I have a question about just in general the Green Party, but specifically like your thoughts and approach on outreach and fundraising. So I think now is a really good time to get all these people who are like tired with both parties, all these things you guys have been saying. Like even my mother, she's like, I don't want to vote, and she's been a hard Democrat for like 50 years. So there are these people, but I guess there's like a lack of awareness, and usually that comes from what you talked about earlier, money, fundraising. So if you could just kind of talk about, like, I guess your win strategy on outreach and fundraising, just so people can have a path, that would be really great as far as grassroots. And I just have to say, because you mentioned Ethiopia and Eritrea, it's very, very sad what's going on in Gaza. That breaks my heart. But there's so many other conflicts going on in Congo, in Ethiopia. 1.4 million people have died. So it's like, as there's been a tension, that's why people have awareness. So it just goes to show about the Green Party and awareness. That's really where the power is. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And let me just add to that. I feel like, your point, what's going on in Gaza is horrific, but it's been going on a long time in a lot of places, including in Gaza. Just not this sustained and this awful. But 5 million people who've been killed in Congo, and just many, Yemen, there was 500,000 that were 500,000 children, I think it is, who were recently killed. So it's like this is like, it's almost like the rule rather than the exception. This kind of violence. Right. What's different now, I think, is that we're seeing it. It's on our phones, it's on our computer screens, it's on our TV. We're really seeing what empire looks like up close and personal. Empire and colonialism, and kind of the destruction on steroids with today's technology and weapons. And Israel has kind of perfected this. They perfect the latest weapons and targeting people, and it's just stunning what's going on, which makes it all the more important. And one of the things that we say in our campaign is that as Gaza goes, we all go. That this is like whether human rights will count for anything, whether international law will count for anything. And this isn't a struggle that we're going to solve quickly because, you know, it was Ronald Reagan's defense secretary, Caspar Weinberger, who called Israel the unsinkable battleship for the U.S. Why? Because it gave us a really critical perch on the oil supply. Not that, I mean, back in that day, we were using that oil. Now we've got our own fossil fuels, but we want to control everybody else's oil. And there's a policy that's called full spectrum dominance, which is the official policy of the United States, the official military policy. It says that we will dominate all countries and all battle spaces, as well as the economies of all countries for all time. How long does that last, you know? I mean, we've been the bully in the schoolyard here, routinely overthrowing other governments. There's something like, 70 some regime change operations that we've conducted since the Second World War. This is just how it works. And what's going on in Gaza is just a very visible, it's like the tip of the iceberg in this symptom. And so this system is changing. Empire has really lost its grip. The BRICS, association now has a greater GDP than the U.S. and its allies. So power has shifted, and empire is not going to let it go easily. But we've got to become a team player. So anyhow, that's just to say that there's a lot going on there, and it's really important that we continue to watchdog it and educate about it and help mobilize around it. And it's a really strong mobilization. That connects with our role as Greens. We are not appreciated for this by the powers of empire. They investigate us. They set COINTEL programs against us. They lock us out of debates, and they censor us. So I know that, I'm classified according to Matt Taibbi's investigation of the Twitter files. What he found was that I'm classified along with the Julian Assange's WikiLeaks.
Free Julian Assange.
Yeah, free Julian Assange. Absolutely. Yes. Well, he's a political prisoner, and that kind of political repression is operating against us, which makes it all the harder for us to be actors. That's one of the reasons we get locked out, and it makes it very hard. I mean, this happens to third parties. This is why third parties just fade away, because we get locked out, suppressed. Peace and Freedom Party used to be on the ballot, maybe 17 states or so, a few years back, maybe 10, 15 years back. Now they're on in one state. The powers that be are not happy about our opposition. But that shouldn't stop us, and the need for our resistance grows all the time. So our outreach, it's like events like this. We're about to go on the road to 15 states. This is like our first road trip. We'll be doing college tours. Networking with the communities that are on fire is how we build this. And we've been doing a lot of networking with them in the last couple of weeks, and that's really building. So, the student debt community, the student justice for Palestine community, the African American community, which is ready to revolt. It's by really building on those, demographics that are in rebellion right now. Many of them don't have a lot of financial resources, like the student debt community doesn't, but there's 44 million of them. So that's kind of how we put this together strategically, and we piggyback off of one community and then the next by helping to mobilize them. And I think what this community is doing around Kimon's campaign is a real critical part of that. We have a whole social media operation. Go to our website, jillstein2024.com. There's a lot going on. We have a whole fundraising effort. We are very close, by the way, to matching funds. Woo! When we get to matching funds, every dollar that we've raised from every donor up to $250 per donor. That gets matched. So we're about to get a big infusion of cash. And I really encourage people, if you have the capacity to throw something into the hat, please do that, because that really helps. And we're about to get this breakthrough. So it's all of that. But above all, it's this attitude of refusing to be disempowered, because they are trying to discourage you, to depress you, to get you to give up in 1,000 ways every day, 24/7. There's just this wall of disempowerment propaganda. And it's all about recognizing what Alice Walker said, that the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing it. And with what Frederick Douglass said, that power concedes nothing without a demand. We have to be that demand. So we've got to fight, and we have the power to fight. And by connecting with a community that's fighting, that is like the sustaining thing right there. If you're not part of a community that's fighting, it's very hard to have that spirit of fight renewed in you. So I really encourage people, join this campaign, join our campaign, and let's make it happen. This is the perfect storm for that change right now.
Dr. Stein, thank you. Thank you. Let's have some closing comments here. Thank everyone for sticking it out with us. I just want you to take a moment to think of your personal story on why you jumped out here to do what you're doing. I want to share mine really quickly. Actually, there's two. One, Nikola Tesla, not Elon Musk that bought out Tesla. He did not create Tesla. Nikola Tesla, the man, actually created a breakthrough in energy that was supposed to be transmitted much like you get Wi-Fi right now. You got a tower that emanates electricity. It's going to electrify the world. If you look at Africa and other countries, they still have denied access to electricity as a tool of oppression. But when his sponsor found out, and I believe it was J.P. Morgan, don't quote me on that, but I believe it was J.P. Morgan, found out that they could not commodify the transmission of this electricity, that his desire was to have free electricity for the whole world. They were like, oh, hell no. They tore the tower down. So I want you to understand what I just said. Nikola Tesla, at the turn of the 20th century, had free electricity available for the world, but they canceled the technology because they couldn't make money from it. We wouldn't even have global warming and climate change from burning dirty fossil fuels if this had been implemented. But they did it so they could make money. This is the world we live in. I want y'all to understand that. This is the people we're dealing with. Now that's on the grand scale. It's a micro scale. My sister, who loved Barack Obama and Obamacare, rallied about her insurance until she needed it. She was in a car accident. She got T-boned. They cut her out of the car. She wasn't seriously injured, but they cut her out of the car. They rushed her to the hospital, and her insurance policy said that had she been unconscious when she arrived at the hospital, they would have to do a full body examination on her. But because she was conscious when she arrived at the hospital, it was only required to address her express illness, her neck, her shoulder, what have you. She went home undiagnosed with internal bleeding. She had half of a millimeter puncture to her liver. Half a millimeter. She was dropping 2 or 3 drops of blood a day. Had she been examined, they would have caught that. She goes home, 3 months later, she collapses in her home. They rush her back to the hospital. Now it's too late. She bleeds out and dies on the operation table. My mother says, oh, we're going to sue, we're going to blah, blah, blah. And I'll never forget this nice, ethical Jewish lawyer who says that I don't want to take your little $5,000 retirement fee unless you got $50,000 prepared to get this to the finish line, because that's what it's going to take. They're going to fight this tooth and nail. And even though you're right, even though they're wrong, you could lose. And if you do lose, they're going to countersue you, and it's going to be a lot more than $50,000 on what they spend on their legal team, and you can end up losing your house. This is how they keep us in check. Okay? This is the system we currently are under. And if we pretend it's something else, it's on us. I'm sorry? My sister,
No, there is a system.
the system,
That we're under.
capitalism.
Boom.
Okay.
First time I heard the word time.
Okay, well, that's what capitalism is. Maximizing profit at all costs. That's climate change was a result of maximizing profit at all costs. The health sick care system, the fact that this is the only industrialized nation that doesn't provide health care to all of the system, is because it's maximizing all costs. In this war, it's maximizing profit at all costs. This is what we're dealing with. Okay? You want to share your story? I got a Noam Chomsky quote I want to end with. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's been such a long, there was not like one thing that really catapulted me into this, but, I'll also just describe two really short things. One is that we worked really hard in my home state to get money out of politics and to pass public financing. We passed it by voter referendum by a 2-to-1 margin, and then the Democrats in progressive Democratic Massachusetts repealed campaign finance reform on a voice vote in the legislature after we, the people, had basically passed it by an overwhelming margin so that we could have publicly financed campaigns, and then they essentially destroyed it with a secret vote. For me, that was the last straw, and that's when I basically decided that it was over for me with the traditional parties, and that's what catapulted me to be a Green. And then I have to say what completely changed my view of running was getting into a debate. This was back in 2002, running for governor, and we fought our way into a debate which was televised. And unbeknownst to us, there was an instant online viewer poll of that debate, but nobody knew that. We were having this debate in a TV studio. It was not a live debate. And we were talking about, or I was talking about healthcare as a human right, about free public higher education, about the right to a job, about demilitarizing our foreign policy and putting our dollars into true security here at home. All of that went over like a lead balloon inside this little TV studio. No one was interested, not even enough to contest it or to try to debate these ideas. They were just considered, irrelevant. And then when I walked out of the debate, I was mobbed by the press, who told me that we had won the debate on the instant online viewer poll. And I relate that story just to convey that people are already with us. It's not like we have to change people's minds. And it was at that point I really understood what Alice Walker is saying, that we actually do have the power. We have the numbers, we have the agenda, we have the historic moment. And this is all about, at that point, it's like I had been an advocate and I had thought always, oh, it's hopeless. We're never going to change everybody's mind and get the power holders to support this progressive agenda. And at that point, the light bulb went off in my head. We don't need them. It's only because they have money from all their corrupt sources that they don't care what public opinion is. But we already have public opinion. So if we can basically demand that this be a democracy, we've already won. And let's just keep at it and make it happen. And big thank you to Kimon. Be sure to sign up on his list, sign up on our list as well. And we're gonna make this happen. We are gonna make history. We're gonna work together, and this is an unstoppable force.
Thank you. She said it right there. And now Charles gets the last word. I think he summarizes where we are. The tragedy of the Palestinians is that they have essentially no international support for a good reason. They don't have wealth, they don't have power, so they don't have rights. It's the way the world works. Your rights correspond to your power and your wealth. Same inside the United States. We shouldn't be surprised to see it. What's called the national interest turns out to be the interest of dominant domestic forces in U.S. society. The natural interest means the interest of the very rich and major corporations, the ones that set government policy. That's the national interest. They are not the population. The population is basically irrelevant. The population often strongly opposes government policy, and they will simply disregard it. Overwhelmingly, people say there should be higher taxes on the wealthy. But what happens? Taxes on the wealthy goes down. We do not live in a society where the public determines government policy. Therefore, this is not a democracy, it's an oligarchy. And we need to act accordingly. And this two-party system is two wings of the same bird, and we're here to break the monopoly. This is We Act Radio. Do something. Do something. Do something. Different. All right, 2024 election, third party, 5% national vote. We're on the ballot. All right? Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for coming out. God bless you.